Hello, this week we will be looking at formatting workbooks for readability and appeal. We are going to begin this tutorial by filling out the documentation worksheet. I'll fill in author, enter, and fill in today's date, and enter. If I'm not happy with the format of the date, I can always go to the number group and click the down arrow to select the long date. Or I can also go to more number formats and choose from a variety of dates. I think I'll select this simple format here and click OK. I'll also align the date to the left to match the format of the author. Then I'll click on A1, and on the Home tab in the Font group, I'll click on the Font down arrow to bring up available fonts. I'll choose Calibri Light, which is a heading style. I can also change the font size to 26. Then I'll bold it by clicking on the B. Now hitting enter and going to A2, I'll change that font size to 10 and click on the italic button. Now selecting A4 to A6, I'll click on the B again to make those bold, and that stands out nicely. I can change the color of the company name by selecting A1 and click on the font color arrow to display a variety of colors. I'll go down to red and click on it, and I'll make A2 red as well. If I double click on A2, it allows me to edit, and then if I highlight Big Flavor, a mini toolbar comes up. I can change that font size to 14. To change the fill color, I'll select A4 through A6 and go up to the paint can. I'll select red fill and go to the font and select white. Then I'll go to B4 through B6 and make that font red with a white fill. I'll increase the width of column B to 30 characters by clicking on the right side and dragging it to 30. Then I'll go up and wrap the text. Next, I'll select the range A4 through B6 and add all borders around the cells. Click on the down arrow and go to all borders. Next, we'll insert a background image. Click on the Page Layout tab and click on Background. Then, besides from a file, I'll browse and I'll go to my Tutorial 2 folder where I see Background. Double-click on it and it inserts a background to the worksheet. Click on the Sales Report Sheet tab, and in C6, I'll calculate the gross sales by starting with equals and then typing SUM in capital letters, beginning parentheses, and then I want to sum up all of the sales below, so I can select or type C27 through N46. There are quite a few cells to select, so I'll type in C27 colon for 2 and N46. Then I'll hit enter. If I want to calculate the profit in C9, I would add up the two expense categories and subtract them from gross sales. So to do that, I'll hit equals, click on C6 for the gross sales, and then minus parentheses C7 plus C8 and end of parentheses. So here I want the expenses to be added together first before subtracted from the sales, and that will give me my net profit. Hit enter to see the calculation. This is showing a profit of about $1 million. I can bring that formula over by clicking on the cell, going to the bottom right hand square and clicking and dragging that cell over. Notice that the formula comes over and calculates the same formula in the D column. Next, I'll go to C16 to calculate the sales per store. There were 20 stores in 2015 and 16 stores in 2014. So the gross sales per store would be calculated by clicking equals, then click on C6 above and dividing it by the number of stores there are, and hit enter. You'll see the average gross sales per store is about $475,000. I want to do the same with cost of sales. So I'll hit equals, click on the total cost of sales, and divide it by the number of stores, and hit enter. I'll do the same with operating expense, divided by stores, enter, and net profit. Don't forget equals, click on C9 and divide it by the number of stores. Enter, and our average profit per store is about $55,000. I can bring these formulas over to column D by highlighting the column, looking for that bottom right-hand square, and dragging it over to column D. Then always check the formula to make sure it's what you wanted. D6 divided by D23. Next, I can calculate the difference between the 2 years by clicking on E6 and subtracting C6 minus D6. And then I'll hit enter. So gross sales went up about $1 million between 2014 and 2015. Copy that formula down by dragging it down and then checking to make sure it's what you wanted. The percent change is simply the difference divided by the starting year. So for a percent change from 2014 to 2015, I take the difference and divide it by 2014, then hit enter, and I'll drag that percent change down. We'll fix the decimals a little bit later. I'll drag down the net change and delete the 0 there, and then I'll drag down the percent change and delete my error message. Let's do the same with sales per store. Now I'd like to copy this formula from above, so I can click on it, Control C for copy, click on E16 and Control V for paste. Then check the formula. Yep, I want 2015 minus 2014. Now I can drag that difference down and it fills in nicely. I can do the same with percent change by Control C, go down to F16 and Control V and drag it down. Then check your formulas. Yep, E16 divided by D16. Now in O26, I'll create the header total and hit enter. On the Home tab in the Editing group, click on the Auto Sum down arrow and then go to Sum. When I click on it, Excel makes the assumption that I want to sum up C27 to N27. That is my intention to add up all the months for the first store, so I'll go ahead and hit enter. Now I can take that formula and drag it all the way down to my other stores. I'll go to B47 and again type total, and this time I'll calculate the total for each month. So I'll highlight the row and then go to Auto Sum and Sum and check the formula to make sure it's summing up what I want. Here it's showing C27 through 46, and yes, that's what I want to sum up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now I'll format the numbers by selecting the non-adjacent ranges C7 to E9, hold down the Control key, and hit C11, Shift, E12. Then I'll go up to the number group and hit the comma symbol. This automatically inserts commas into the numbers. Now, I don't want the decimals, so I'll decrease the decimals twice to make them whole numbers. I'll format the percentages by selecting the range F6 through F9, hold down the Control key, and F11 through F12. Then I'll click the percent button. I'd like 2 decimal points behind the percent, so I'll increase the decimal this time by 2 places. I can also use the name box in the top left-hand corner to select C27 to O47 and hit enter. Then select the comma icon and decrease the decimals by 2 places. I'd also like to top align those numbers. I'll align the column titles by selecting C5 through F5, and in the alignment group, select the center button. I can also indent categories by selecting B7 and B8 and hitting the increase indent button twice. Another way to make selections stand out is to add borders. I'll select the range B5 to F5 and go to the borders down arrow to select bottom border. I'll also add a bottom border to B6 to F6. Go up to the border down arrow and simply hit bottom border. In the range B9 to F9, I'll add a top border by selecting the down arrow and then going to top border. And for B11 to F12, I'll go up to the border down arrow and select top and bottom border. Now in C26 to O26, which can be highlighted by selecting the first one and then holding the Shift key and selecting the last one, I can center those headings by hitting the center button and I'll change the font size to 9. In B27 to B46, I'll change that font size to 9, and I'll increase the indent by 1 and top align, which is the top corner button. In B47 to O47, I want to add some borders there, so I'll click the down arrow and select all borders, and I want to do the same with O26 to O46, so I'll click on O46, scroll up, Shift, and O26, then go to all borders. To merge cells, I'll select A27 to A33, and in the alignment group, click on Merge and Center. I'll do the same with A34 to 36, Shift 36, Merge and Center, and A37 through A40, 42 and 43, and A44 through A46. And I'll go ahead and center A41 since that doesn't need to be merged. Now I can rotate the names by selecting A27 and going all the way down to A46. So Shift Select and go up to the alignment group and hit Rotate Text Up. And I'd also like to middle align those, so I'll click on that. Lastly, I'll take column A and shorten it to only 7 characters. There, that saved us some space. Now I'll select A26 to O26, go over to O26, Shift, click, and in the number group, click in the bottom arrow, and it will bring the dialog box launcher up. This box contains the same tasks as on the ribbon. Click on the Font tab and the Color Down arrow to select white. Then go to the Fill tab and select red. Then click OK. This makes the headers stand out. I'll also format the row labels by selecting A27 through A44, and this time I'll right-click and go to Format Cells to bring up the same dialog box. Next, on the Fill tab, in the 7th column, I'll select gray, and then I'll click on the Font tab and select white as my font color. Then I'll change this to a size of 16 and click OK. Lastly, I'll add a double border to A27 through O33. This will highlight all of the Wisconsin restaurants. Bring up that dialog box and go to the Border tab and click on the double line. Then click on Outline and then OK. You can see that highlights those restaurants together. By zooming out, you can see that formatting cells adds appeal to your worksheet. This concludes this video on formatting workbooks. Join me for the second video for Tutorial 2, where we look at formatting worksheets for printing.